Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
Hope everybody is doing great out there today.
We do. We're sending out our prayers to all the loved ones who've been affected by this nasty weather, and we do hope everyone's doing well today, for sure.
Yes, one of our family members over in Hawaii has unaccounted for family members after the tornadoes have hit such an extensive area, Kentucky and other states as well. So we send our prayers that everybody be accounted for and be healthy.
Absolutely, yep.
So, it's been a roller coaster ride weather-wise. A few days ago it was low 80s here, and then yesterday was really chilly. We only got into the 50s, which, I know that sounds great to a lot of people depending on where you're at. It's all perspective, right? And then today is kind of more of a middle ground. It's beautiful. There's none of those fake funny clouds in the sky at the moment. And the sun's out, and it feels like it's high 60s. It's wonderful.
Very clear.
It's all about harmony and balance, and everything in the manifest universe is ultimately it's a balancing game, so to speak. We see this picture, and many of us can relate to it. You got an angel on one shoulder, and you got quite the opposite on the other, both whispering into our ears. These times that we are in, it seems that this whispering may be louder and clearer in one ear for some people and louder and clearer in the other ear for others.
Yes, it does seem like the separation of energies is not just happening externally, but internally.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's an old Cherokee legend. And you see here an old Cherokee chief teaching his grandson about life. A fight is going on inside me, he said to the boy. It's a terrible fight. It's between two wolves. One is evil. He is anger, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, self-doubt, and ego. The other is good. He is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. The same fight is going on inside you and inside every other person too. The grandson then asked his grandfather which wolf will win, and the old chief simply replied, the one you feed.
Doesn't that just say it all? I mean, that speaks volumes. That just says everything that you need to know in this lifetime to get through. And we all need these little tidbits of wisdom and these golden nuggets to help us through, sometimes day by day, sometimes minute by minute. Life can be such a struggle.
It can be. It can be. And again, it depends on how we are approaching it and what we are feeding. And looking at things now, looking at what's going on in the world, maybe, utilizing that light that we're just kind of shedding on the situation here, maybe we could see what's really going on behind the surface a little clearer. So we see this from CNN. Fueled by gun violence, cities across the U.S. are breaking all-time homicide records this year. Isn't it curious? We have this plague upon the land that hit us December 2019, thereabouts. And since that time, things have really accelerated. As we talked about, the consolidation of wealth, consolidation of power, everything has gone to such a incredible degree. It's all sped up. Now, everything's sped up as far as my perspective, and many other people agree, since the eclipse, as we were talking about back in August of 2017. And then, of course, we had that Revelation 12 sign the following month. And we're heading towards another eclipse in 2024 in April. And, again, what is an eclipse? It's when the light from the sun is temporarily blocked, by the moon. And we've really gotten into detail about that in other videos as well. By the way, there is a significant eclipse that starts on the Pacific side around Oregon in 2023 and finishes up down in Texas, which is curious, kind of goes right along the border area as well. So we have 12 U.S. cities breaking records for homicides. Indianapolis, Indiana, Toledo, Ohio, Rochester, New York, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Columbus, Ohio, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Austin, Texas, Louisville, Kentucky, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Tucson, Arizona, St. Paul, Minnesota, and Portland, Oregon. And the interesting thing that this article is pointing out is that every single one of these has a mayor in there that's from the DEM party.
Yeah.
So they're talking about gun violence in places where it's actually DEM controlled. I wasn't able to get exact data. Maybe somebody else would be interested in looking into it. I'd be curious to see what what that big topic is that everybody's been talking about as far as rates and percentages. I'd be very curious to correlate these cities to, high or low numbers, so to speak. I did see that some of these cities are on the most, percentage, if you know what I mean. Again, some of these have the highest percentage of population that has, done a certain thing, and we have to leave it at that, so to speak.
Yep.
But yet again, what was coming through right before we're making this video, the guides were telling Cindy that, bring up what happens with the loosh, because you have to realize, again, if we take it in biblical terms, this is spiritual warfare, and even non-biblical terms, because, again, 60% or more of the entire global population sees the world through a Judeo-Christian Islamic lens. And so that's a huge portion of the world. And when you talk about what would be called first world countries that are influencing everybody else more, than, say, third world countries, which don't really exert their influence outside of their own, countries themselves, then you're talking a much higher percentage of the population as well as seeing everything through an Abrahamic lens. And, that does change our perspectives on things, especially, when, again, we get into that Old Testament where it's all, death, destruction, vengeance, and rage. And it really is very, very telling as to, where that comes from. There are beings that feed off of negative energies. Plain and simple, and you can view it there, that life feeds off life. Is that not a given? Life feeds off life. Now, there's different ways of doing that. We could take what is given to us in a natural sense, as what we have gotten is that the first peoples that were on this planet that were free of the influence of what we have been calling the controllers, you could call it the cabal, you could call it whatever you want to call it. You could call it Satan because it is the adversary system, because Satan means adversary. It is the adversary to humanity, the system that's in place. And when you recognize that there's ways of doing things, the original inhabitants of this planet, and it's also reflected in Genesis, basically what we got was they ate what the earth gave them: nuts, seeds, fruits, things that fell off, living plants. So, it would be, things like, apples and oranges and watermelons and, things like squash and corn and nuts and seeds and all these things where it wasn't taking a life to eat any of these things. There was potential for life in that most of these things were all about just simply providing seeds so it could self-replicate later. But it wasn't killing, so to speak, taking life. So when we look at, the first part of Genesis, and it says, that basically the fruit of, all the plants and stuff, those will be your food and their leaves will be your medicine. And then after the fall, which again, the fall is all about basically descending out of a golden age into eventually a Kali Yuga dark age, which we have found ourselves in. Well, at that time, then basically you have the God, in quotation marks, uh, figure saying to go ahead and subject and subdue everything. Use it as you will, so to speak. Exert your dominance. And that's what this system is. It's all about exerting dominance and, viewing everything as basically, something to be exploited. And as we've shared, Mother Earth is being exploited to a high degree, to such a degree that she's in torment and torture. And, we are most definitely not in a symbiotic relationship with the planet as a society and as a system.
No, not at all. We are way, way, way out of balance, and it's going to take some time to pull things back into balance, and while we are out of balance, it's like we were talking about how life feeds off life, and they couldn't have made it any clearer today. I just like the way uh, Mike articulates things so much better than I do. But when they were showing me that all of these things that certain entities do just to create pain and suffering for the fourth dimensional entities to feed on, and the fourth dimensional entities do as they wish because there's this thing where they continue to get fed. It just really made me upset today. And it's like, if you really sit with that and think about it, actually, sometimes maybe it'll help some people who are in a really bad spot or are really hurtful. Maybe they can change their mood if they have this understanding that they are feeding the darkness. That's, then you kind of get this rebel thing and you say, no, I'm not going to sit in this pain. I'm going to find a way to make things better. So you're not feeding them.
It's one of the things that I feel that they really want me to get across is how wrong some of our concepts are. Absolutely wrong. Absolutely wrong. And it's so obvious that it's of the dark side. And again, now what I want to do here is just to show you, again, everything, in some ways, everything that's happening on this planet, all the chaos, all the destruction, is one blood sacrifice after another from the powers that have been controlling the planet in a 3D sense, giving up offerings to these dark beings on 4D. When we see civil war in Ethiopia, an eternal stalemate while people die. And Ethiopia is an interesting country in many different ways too, because it does have a very interesting ancient history. It's just sad. I mean, it's beyond sad, but it's nonstop. Why do these wars not end? Because they're not supposed to end. When you look to Yemen, for instance, and this is out of World Vision, and I remember I think I was 18 years old when I sponsored a child. It was one of the first things I wanted to do as an adult in this world was to, basically sponsor a child in a war-torn country. And, World Vision does that. And, again, anybody that looks deeper, you might find that unfortunately less money goes to the kids. I don't know. I haven't investigated it in recent times, but I do think it's beautiful when people want to help people that are, stuck in these countries that are being tortured and tormented for generations on end. Look at Afghanistan again, and we know what's going on there. What's the number one thing that gets exported from Afghanistan? Has to do with a huge, huge industry, and an industry that creates so many more problems, so many more people in torment and mental agony, emotional agony, creating more loosh, creating more food for these dark, dark entities. We started looking at, the angel on one side and the devil on the other. Well, this system creates food for that devil, and that devil gets into people and creates nonstop conflict and wars. You have millions of people literally on the verge of starving to death, and many people are starving to death in this country, and it's just nonstop war that has raged the planet. And we had talked about Matthew 24, and there's a corresponding verse in Mark that says, you're going to be in the times, but you're going to hear rumors of wars, and there will be wars, and there's going to be nations rising as nations. These go back through history. There's never a year where there hasn't been this in recorded history. It's because we don't really have the recollection of what it's like when we're outside of a Kali Yuga. And they are building up right now, obviously, towards a third global conflagration, which has the potential to dwarf the first two. And again, as we said, it's been leaked. This has been part of their plan forever. But if we look to Hopi, prophecy, we see them talking about it, and they say the U.S. will be attacked by those who first had the ancient light, the ancient knowledge. And of course, that would be, countries such as China. And China and U.S. are obviously on a collision course. As here you see Iran claims that cameras and atomic site might have been hacked, and there's an awful lot of talk about an Israeli attack on Iran being practiced for and coordinated. And of course, Israel itself, again, our religious thoughts cloud our ability to perceive things in many, many cases. If we, blindly say and profess a belief system, and people will say, and I see top politicians all the time, and I just wonder, do they realize how divisive they are, or are they truly just simply being manipulated and they're innocent and they don't have a clue? I guess it varies depending on which individual we're talking about, because you have them on both the right and the left, that will profess these things and make these statements like they believe we should be unified, but then they're elevating their system above others, and viewing others as being wrong. Even if they're not saying so, they are viewing it in that light. And again, source is within every single individual, so it's up to the individual to decide what path they want to go on. One size does not fit all.
No, one size doesn't fit all, because we're all on this very individual and unique journey, and that's because Source wishes to express itself. So people are at a different rate at different times, learning different things from a different perspective, and that's all done, very, very much on purpose, so that things can be explored in the biggest way possible. But these entities, controllers, have found a way to harness these energies and influence it for their benefit.
Exactly. So, Russia is edging closer to war as new arms arrive on the Ukrainian border. And many are looking, thinking this is going to be a January, February event. And, the Galactic said that it's being blurred. When they look into the timeline generator, they can see a lot of things, but they can't see when this starts because, again, there are very advanced technologies that are being used in many different ways to keep all these things, and timelines are always changing. So as we grow up and as we awaken, and no longer are clouded by the systems that they've given us, we can change timelines, and we can change them fast. This is one of the powers that we have, and we have changed timelines as far as certain things, and regarding especially that plague upon the land. And as you see here, Putin says Russia maintains nuclear parity with the U.S. but leads in new armaments and technologies. As what we have gotten is most definitely everything that you're seeing now is truly, the advances are being fueled by beings that are not Homo sapiens, and in some cases not even third density.
Right.
Not even what we would call physical.
Mm-hmm.
Secret U.S. government unit arbitrarily used sensitive databases to research journalists, because again, it's all about control. It's all about control. We could ask Alexa about that.
Oh, yes. In fact, I don't know if you guys saw that, but we saw a good one about her today.
Yes, UK's cyber spy chief claims China might use digital yuan for surveillance and transaction control. Of course. Why would I be against any sort of cryptocurrency? And I don't sit well with it because, again, I might know how many dollars are in my pocket. I might know how many pieces of silver are in my pocket, so to speak. I might know, how many pounds of corn, rice, and flour are on the shelves, whatever it is. And it might be something that only I know. Yet, when you're doing this, then everybody that is controlling the system knows. And do you really know? Can it change at any time? How much do you trust the system?
Right.
How much do you trust anybody when it comes to this technology? Why should you trust anybody when it comes to this technology? And oops, I see two people just unsubscribed because they make their money in crypto. You know, there is a possibility for a positive use, but I'm very, very cynical of that. I think we need to go back to the past in so many ways, tangible goods, instead of, something that can be completely controlled through a keystroke, a single keystroke, by somebody that comes in and hacks a system. How many times have we seen hacking going on? Do you want to totally entrust you and your family's welfare to somebody else safeguarding everything that is of value in your life, so to speak? Because if there is no barter and trade, and if there is no cash, and everything just becomes digital, that's absolute control.
It is absolute control because you no longer hold any power over your own belongings. Somebody else is holding that power. Somebody else has their finger above that button that could ruin your whole life.
Yeah, what we've gotten from the guides is the key is to getting out of the system. There are going to be separate systems that develop outside of the system, and people are going to go back into harmony. Part of the biggest thing is that we're out of harmony. We have no balance. We have no balance in this society. When these wars are all about creating endless food for certain entities to feed off of and to become stronger. Think of the suffering that we see, and think about how often things seem to be just incredibly ill-timed. As you see, there's a new piece of legislation, right? They're going to slap a fee on methane now, stealth tax. It's going to end up averaging a 17% increase for the average American's bill at a time when people are suffering.
Yeah.
People are struggling, with inflation in other areas.
Right, to create more suffering and more and more and more.
And again, they'll say, well, we have to do this because we love Mother Earth. Yeah, you don't love Mother Earth at all. These power structures, that are on this planet seem to hate the planet itself. They are the problem. They're not the cure. And everything they're doing is all about creating more loosh again, as we see. And, this headline says it all because, of course, we'll have the official version, CC, right? Climate, CHANGE. There's official things that you cannot diverge from, or otherwise you're going against the science. Oh, that's science that constantly gets
Changes.
revised every year. Okay. And again, we could say, they told us, don't worry, go ahead, press your cell phone up against your ear for 6 hours, 8 hours a day. Nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
You're going to be fine.
Cook your food in that microwave. It doesn't alter anything.
Yeah, that nonstick cookware is just going to, save you time cleaning dishes.
Yeah.
It's not going to hurt you in any way.
Yeah, we're trying to help you, see?
Yes, all these things that later on, by the way, right. When it's already damage done, too late in many cases. And then there's a new thing that will arise. And so we have states calling in National Guard. We have 4 of them to alleviate shortages in healthcare. And this is all about, again, in many ways, it's all about getting used to certain, well, what's going to become the new norm in some places, because again, this is the big divorce. This is the great breakup. Everything is going to be splitting up, and it needs to split up into smaller units. It's through the larger units that everything is controlled. You know, how could you possibly, if you're talking, you know, the amount of true controllers on the planet being so few that, you know, you have one to watch, you know, maybe 10 million people or 100 million people. If you break it up so that the power resided in towns, even, you know, towns first and foremost were making most of their own rules, and then states, you know, counties, states, and going on up. They couldn't control that. You know, there's no way they could control that. That's why we have all these big organizations that really rule the roost. And it's not about, you know, helping humanity. It's about maintaining control and power. So Indiana, Maine, New Hampshire, and New York. Yeah, get used to seeing National Guard helping in your healthcare centers. And, you know, it's interesting too. I think all those are still over on that left side, but maybe wrong with Maine currently. DeSantis, yes, you know, and this is all about that divorce that we're talking about too. Will it issue emergency order barring state licenses for Florida facilities housing illegal alien children from, you know, number 46's border crisis? And, you know, remember that statement saying, you know, do something, do anything regarding, you know, the lack of aid from the Fed in regard to what's going on with the open borders and with millions of people entering the country that we don't have a clue who they are. Not a clue, you know. So this, and again, that's all about that Trojan horse thing that's going on. It has been underway. Mississippi Public Universities withdraw their dates for men, and we see things moving in the other direction in some places. Unfortunately, not all. You know, the UK seems to be heading into a little bit more of a deeper lockdown. What's happening over in Austria is a mess. You know, very, very disconcerting. Of course, what's happening in Australia as well. But yet, you know, again, voice your opinion strongly. Some people had talked about Comet Leonard, and, you know, there's always the thought, is this the Nostradamus, you know, comet about, you know, everything, because it seems that the outbreak of perhaps that major conflagration comes with a comet. But this one is not brightening as they had hoped, and it's not really one that's going to ooh and ah us, even though it is the brightest of the year. It appears to be fading. Will it do something unexpected? We shall see. Or will there be something that pops up very unexpected?
Great.
That revisionist history, we have a 2,700-year-old Assyrian-style leather discovered, armor discovered in China. And what would somebody from Assyria be doing in China? Well, yeah, it could be that, you know, this was somebody that was, you know, in our modern terms, a mercenary, even, and just, you know, a random fighter, you know, off exploring. The point is that the interactions in the ancient world were much different than what we are led to believe. You know, we tend to get that impression that people were just, you know, herding and doing their agriculture, not traveling far and wide. When you're talking 2,500 years ago, 3,000 years ago, not really the case. As things have been revised, and we brought up the fact that, you know, there's cases of what appears to be Vikings making it all the way into South America. And there's a lot of curious things in our history that have been totally eradicated. But we've had global societies in the past countless times as we go through these yugas. And, you know, you might not realize it, but almost 3 billion people don't use the internet still.
Wow.
Have never used the internet. And so as our population perhaps has peaked at like 7.8 billion people, and that might be it at the high point,
Right,
because
right.
the way we're watching things go right now, all those predictions for a population that's going to just go insane, doesn't look like it's manifesting. How about that science either? Yeah, but
Yeah.
of course we know there's things in play here. So think about that, 3 billion people. Now they might actually be the blessed ones.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, can you guys go to a time where there was no internet? Can you fathom this? Think about it. Sit with that for a minute. What does that mean to you?
And so, as we were talking about the loosh and everything, we're talking about just how out of balance everything is. And if we look to the stories that we see in the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, part of it is always this divine. Well, there's this interplay between these different energetic forces. All throughout history, you have these divine love stories of the highest level, with this looking at Krishna and Radhe, and Krishna, incarnation of Vishnu, thought to be the preserver of this particular universe, and we say it that way, this particular universe. And Radhe is an incarnation of Lakshmi, and so their higher selves are basically a couple in a way. You could think about it as a union of these divine elemental forces, divine masculine and the divine feminine. When we look to what we see with Mary and baby Jesus, and again Jesus really, it was Yeshua, as we've spoken of, because we've gotten that he does prefer Yeshua. Nobody called him Jesus back when he was alive and walking this planet in a 3D form. And it really wasn't until a Swiss translation became popularized back in 1535 that Jesus became known to the masses. As again, it's translation from the Greek. So when we see this, it's really, again, a representation of the nurturing aspect of the Divine Mother, as we see Horus with Isis, who is known as Aset in Egyptian. It really is all about that nurturing aspect. So we have it also exemplified in Shiva and Shakti, and we see half here is Shiva, half is Shakti. It's that interplay between the forces of the masculine and the feminine, of the yin and the yang. This is all that gives us this creation that we see around us. And the mother aspect, the physicality aspect, has been vilified and has been even demonized in so many ways. And some view the material universe, there are some forms of Gnosticism that views the material universe as evil, a corruption of the demiurge. And again, that is, from what we've gotten, absolutely incorrect, because where we are is the result of being in a dark age. When we're in a golden age, we wouldn't say that at all, because existence is totally, totally different.
Oh, right, for sure. They have gone to great lengths to write history in such a way that demonizes the divine feminine or the mother energy and make it seem like this brutal energy that has no mercy and shouldn't be utilized in our society. They've gone back to rewrite these things over and over and over just to push that energy out. But when you combine the divine feminine and divine masculine in a balanced manner, you have some serious power.
Absolutely. That's why they don't want this, because that balanced energy is what brings us up in frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's triggered by the Kundalini energy and Shakti. That divine feminine energy lies dormant in most people. It's just sitting there in the base of the spine. It hasn't been triggered until your chakras are opened, and it takes processing emotional
Yes.
traumas
Yes.
to open your chakras. This is why we have emotional traumas. This is why we have the NonStop Wars. This is why we're all about blood sacrifice. And this brings me back to just look at the traditions, say, in the Catholic Church, but even look beyond that. Even if you're, professing a belief in some form of Protestant church and you still believe in the blood sacrifice, you're still missing the point.
Right. Sorry.
You just haven't gotten it. This is the basis of understanding everything. It's all about coming to a sense of balance and harmony within ourselves. So when you are believing in something like original sin, you're automatically taking feelings of guilt and negativity upon yourself. And you're saying somebody else has to deal with this for me because I can't handle that. And that is exactly the opposite of what reality is. We have to handle our own crap, so to speak.
Right.
We have to process our own feelings, our emotions of guilt, shame, regret, and all the positive things as well. We have to be able to let flow through us. If you're feeling guilty for existing, then you're missing the point of existence in its entirety.
And that's one of their biggest teachings, is
Yes.
feel bad for existing on this planet. And that's how they attain their loosh is very sneaky. It's very underhanded when we need to understand that we are here on a journey. We are source expressing itself, which is a beautiful thing. Beautiful thing.
Yes. And I think it was Sitchin that called Nibiru the planet of the crossing. And in some ways, that's telling too, because when we look to the cross, we're not looking at what some cultures had looked at as an equilateral cross, where all four are in balance. The cross crosses in the middle, and that could refer to the interplay of the elements in a balanced aspect. When we look at the cross that Yeshua is supposedly crucified on, it's unbalanced. As you could see, it's longer than it is wider, and again, it's showing that the system, everything, is completely distorted. It's not harmonious. It's not in balance. Ask yourself, when you're taking that wafer or taking a sip of wine, why would you want to partake in a sacrifice that way?
Right.
When you look to the Old Testament, and in Jericho, for instance, supposedly God tells Joshua, go blow your horn and then slaughter every man, child, woman, every little infant, every living thing, slaughter, but put the gold and the silver in the storehouse of the Lord.
Right. And I just kind of want to mention, a lot of people will say, well, it's just symbolic. Well, why would you even want to symbolically do something like that?
Exactly. I mean, who partakes in blood sacrifices? Which being partakes in blood sacrifices? It's over here on this shoulder over here that you see. This is the system, and this is an interesting representation that we could most definitely morph into what would look like a Draco in so many ways. So this is the distortion of everything that we see, and it's recognizing it. And we still get comments, and I saw like there was 2 comments saying New Ager alert or something like that. And what this shows is spiritual ignorance of the highest sense, and again, the ability to manipulate people that don't know anything other than what they've been told and haven't bothered to look deeper.
Yeah, because they're afraid to look deeper because they've been threatened with their very own soul, burning in hell for eternity. So that's not playing fair.
Or it could be even, a parent that thought they were doing good and, don't question me or you'll get the whip type of thing. Many people are brought up in those. And traumas pass from generation to generation to generation. And we're in a point of time right now where you're not just even healing yourself. You're healing DNA legacy. You're healing traumas that your mother, your father, your grandmother, your grandfather, your great-grandmother, your great-grandfather went through. When we see what happened to the indigenous people that were here on, say, the Trail of Tears, of which affected both Cindy and my lineage, it's just a huge atrocity that hasn't been completely cleared to this day, hundreds of years later now.
Right.
160, 70 years later, whatever it is. It's so sad, but this is how the system traumatizes. This is all part of the bigger plan, because again, the nonstop wars create a nonstop banquet for the one on this side. And it's not just one entity, of course, it's many. There are many. And we have gotten that in these times, there's not just one angel on your shoulder and one devil on your shoulder. There's more than likely many, because these times are critical. And we know that the dark side has assigned to every single starseed light worker at least one negative being to watch everything they do and to look for opportunities to trip them up and to create all sorts of disharmony in their lives.
Right. So, if you're taking the time to heal yourself right now, you're also taking the time to heal your ancestral, and you're taking the time to heal those who will come after you. Now to heal is very, very, very important.
We have to find balance. We have to find harmony. By disconnecting us from the earth, they have taken away some of our lifespan.
Yes.
Because we no longer recognize the elemental beings, and there are elemental beings that are nurturing every single tree, plant, flower, every blade of grass out there has an intelligence attached to it that is basically assigned to maintain its 3D body. And you have elemental beings assigned to you. And if you're alive, you have these things. And for some people, they'll just go running and screaming and think, oh my God, demons, they're demons. Yeah. Well, demons were daemons, which were nature spirits, and they were thought of in a benevolent light. People don't even know what they're saying in so many ways. They don't have a clue about how distorted the mainstream view of reality is. And thankfully, about 98, 99% of the people that watch these videos on a regular basis do know. So for you guys, this is nothing new, but it's all about sharing and awakening others. And please do double check, make sure you are still subscribed, because they're always unsubscribing because they don't want the messages going out there. And please do share them far and wide, and places like Facebook, in the heart of the empire there, and Reddit and places like that. We have to wake up as many as we can, because this is all about leaving this little dark age down here. So we see it's not as long as the golden age. The golden age is a much longer period of time, but boy, the darkness, when it prevails, it does make this 3D existence very, very challenging. We're not going to go directly into a golden age. We have to go and go through a transition through what we would classify as a bronze and then a silver age before we get to the golden age. When we are in the golden age, we are in a 5D existence. And so that truly is heaven on earth. And we can view it that as we step into the Bronze Age, we are actually stepping into, well, the Australian Aboriginals say we're returning to dreamtime. And what is dreamtime? Well, when we're sleeping, we're in 4D. So what we will have in this period of bronze and silver is an existence when we're basically fully in 4D. And then we step out and step into that fifth density existence. And then who is going to be there? They're all going to be there as far as the benevolent ones. And anybody that wants to reach out to any of the benevolent ones, it'll be easy for you to. What would Jesus do? Or what would Yeshua do? Well, ask him.
Right.
You'll be able to communicate with him. And many people can communicate with him now.
Yeah.
And as we've shared, as many others that have communicated with him have shared, his story is not what they're telling you.
Oh, no, it's far from it. Again, you have to just remember who's controlling the books, who's controlling the information. And as long as that information is coming in from the controllers, you can bet they're going to put their spin on it to make them benefit so they can stay in control and do what they want to do for the longest time possible.
Did you have anything else that you wanted to share?
Well, just that, like, they're just showing me, like, the bronze and halfway through the silver is going to be very blended, but there will be a huge difference from going from the silver to the gold age. That's going to be like a stunner. So right here, life is really going to change, and I gotta wonder about this thing that I've seen where there's a sun flare. And if this is the time that the sun flare happens right here on the cusp of the silver and the gold, where everything just seriously changes overnight in the twinkle of an eye.
Mm-hmm. But we have a period of transition to go through right now, so we need to be prepared for that, and it's a marathon. Mm-hmm. It is absolutely a marathon, and I want to thank all you guys that are hanging with us, because
yes,
you know, our purpose is not it's not about, you know, having the highest ranked videos, although that just means that we're doing our purpose as far as reaching others, because you know, we recognize that this is not our first go round, as we've been here in many Kali Yugas doing the same thing that we're doing right now. And it's a blessing to get to do it with, you know, my partner in the higher realms, because, you know, we do recognize that we're partners in the higher densities as well. And it's a blessing to have this time to help everyone transition through this period. You know, you will know them by their fruit. And, you know, again, it's kind of sad but almost ridiculous that people can believe that such benevolent beings as a Kuan Yin, as an Aset, a Lakshmi, White Buffalo Calf Woman, both Marys, Mary Magdalene, you know, Mother Mary. Now maybe those two and Yeshua, because people have been brought up in Abrahamic tradition, they won't have any suspicions of them, or they might only, you know, depending on what your, you know, denomination is, they might have a little bit of suspicion about the Marys, but not about Yeshua. But the reality is, all these beings, I mean, they're all on the same team. They're all working for the same goal, and that goal is that the light of Source grows within all of us, and we help to speed up the process of getting back to a golden age. And in the golden age, what do we have? We have benevolent beings that are helping us grow and learn around us all the time, the exact opposite of what we have now. Right now, we have the dark ones that are all about distorting the truth and keeping us down with them, keeping us from reaching our full potential, because misery loves company and they want to keep us with them. And everything that they're doing is all about keeping us with them. They don't want us going up and enjoying, you know, a much longer period in a golden age. That's the last thing they want us with them, so they could again keep feeding off of us with nonstop wars, nonstop trauma, nonstop tragedy, nonstop frustration, all the negative emotions that humanity sees on this planet right now. So obviously, I'm sure you don't want to spend 1 second more with them than you have to.
Right, exactly. And, you know, I think one of the most important things to keep in mind as we're all on this journey together is remember that the fourth density isn't what we can see with our two eyes. That's something that we see as our pineal gland opens. You can finally see these entities when it's time for you. But just keeping that in mind, knowing that if your sorrow is being caused by an external force, please keep in mind that somebody is feeding on you, and it's really important to swing the emotions in a more positive direction, some way, some shape or form.
Yes. Cultivate that love and joy in your heart, and it'll flee from you.
And feed the good dog.
Exactly.
Wolf.
Feed the good wolf.
Yes.
As always, guys, thanks for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. We couldn't do it without your support in these places in this time. And also do check out Medicinal Foods. Great people, great products. Definitely can help body, mind, spirit as well. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.